Well, as you recall, the last time, General Shannon had also met the angel. And so now we're moving on to chapter 7. The angel asked General Shannon to get the heads of all the military branches to come to the facility as soon as possible. He was hoping by Friday if possible, and for them to come alone. He was also expected that the president and the vice president would be in attendance, along with the Speaker of the House and the Majority Leader of the Senate. General Shannon said he could make all of that happen by Friday without telling too much. He left their meeting to go make all the necessary arrangements for timing and air travel. Mr. Martin and the angel continued to go over what the plan needed to be and how it could be carried out, with or without the parties' full cooperation. This was probably going to be the first time for many, or all of them, to know that they were not in charge anymore. It was not going to be any trouble for the angel or Mr. Martin, as God was in control for all of this for now. Some eyes were about to be opened for sure. There were a number of things that were taking shape as they spoke. 1. The full border fence along the U.S. southern border was now in place, and it was a shock to everyone who was involved in border security. Who did this and how did it happen so fast? Everyone wondered. This was only the beginning of what was to take place. 2. Everyone who had crossed the border illegally in the last 2+ years was immediately returned to their native country of Mexico or South America. This all happened within an hour. All of the makeshift housing accommodations were found totally empty in the U.S. Not one soul was left behind, and there was no trash or belongings of anyone left behind. Everyone involved with this immigration was found on the phone to Washington trying to get answers. The mayors of all the cities who had become sanctuary cities were calling their governors in Washington trying to get answers. News organizations from everywhere were trying to get their top reporters to the sites and asking questions of everyone involved. They were all wondering, where could millions of these people have gone so quickly when it took over 2 years for them to get here? And who was responsible for what was taking place? Of course, the answer was God was taking care of it and saw to it that the immigrants were no worse off and had places to stay in their native lands and plenty of food in place. The cartels were placed under spiritual control, and all of their workers in the U.S. major cities were all displaced back to their native countries and being held under their government's control, for the time being in a lockdown environment. There would be no trouble coming from the cartels in the short term, and drug trafficking across the southern border was totally halted. Mr. Martin and the angel were joined by 12 other angels, whose appearance in human form, in nice suits and ties, were looking professional. They were subordinate to Alan Angel, but that was really not important, as they were all in agreement as to what was being done. It was no different than the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost being in one accord all the time, forever and ever. A remarkable contrast to how things were done on earth, to say the least. The planning of the 14 continued until 5:30, and the angel decided that they had accomplished all they could for today, which was quite a bit. Mr. Martin turned on the news so they could all see the frantic nature of what was taking place in the U.S., with the return of all the migrants and the media having no answers to give to anyone about what had happened. Sadly, the angel turned to Mr. Martin. "They still have no clue as to what is taking place," the angel offered. "I guess I can understand that," said Mr. Martin, "but it will become clear to them in the coming days," he said. "That is true," said the angel. With that, all of a sudden, Mr. Martin was left alone in his suite, and the angels had disappeared and just went on their way, he thought to himself. "I guess they will reappear when they are good and ready," he thought. He tidied up his papers and put them in his briefcase and sat at the end of the table. He went to the phone and called General Shannon, hoping he could be reached. "General, how is everything with you?" Mr. Martin asked. "Are we all set with our guests arriving by 8 a.m. on Friday for our meeting?" Shannon replied. "It is easier than I thought," he added. "I hope our meeting on Friday goes this easy," he added. "I see no reason that should not be," stated Mr. Martin. "The outcome of all this is not dependent upon their cooperation, is it?" Mr. Martin stated matter-of-factly. "Yes, you are right about that," replied Shannon. "How about you order us up some nice steaks, baked potatoes, and a nice salad with some ranch dressing, or whatever you might like," finished General Shannon. "I'll be up in about 30 minutes, and we can try and have a nice, quiet dinner together." "That sounds great," said Edward. "I'll take care of it." With that, he hung up with the general and called down to the mess hall and placed the order, which would be filled quickly. Mr. Martin headed off to the bathroom and decided to take a quick shower and change into a more casual shirt. Once that was done, he came back to the sofa and watched some more news and waited for the food and General Shannon to arrive. The general and the food arrived promptly, and they had a nice, quiet dinner, as much as could be expected with all that was going on in one day. Of course, they knew that time meant little to the angel or God. Edward filled in General Shannon on the arrival of 12 more angels in civilian clothes, and they both wondered how many more were really around they could not see or know about. Time would tell about all of that.